Call this meeting of the Amador County Board of Supervisors to order on this Tuesday, July 26, 2022. The board did meet in closed session and handled item 1, conference with labor negotiators and direction to staff. The other items will go back into closed session after the meeting ends today, the regular meeting. With that, can you stand and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. We'll go to public matters not on the agenda. Discussion items only, no action to be taken. Any person may address the board at this time upon any subject within the jurisdiction of the Amador County Board of Supervisors. However, any matter that requires action may be referred to staff and our committee for report and recommendation for possible action at a subsequent board meeting. Is there any public comment at this time? Anyone in the audience? Yes. If you could state your name and sign in for the record, please. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, I'll do this.
Good morning.
Good morning, supervisors and county leaders. It's nice to see you today. My name is Marcus McCray. I am the Regional Director for SEIU Local 2015. We represent long-term care workers as close as across the street, but all over Amador County. So home care, nursing homes. Because of the work that our members do, the most vulnerable people in our community, people with disabilities and seniors, have been able to live safely at home. And this is no small feat. We're living in a time where there have never been so many threats to medically vulnerable people. When wildfires come through the community, our members rush to get the people that they take care of to safety. During the pandemic, our members worked around the clock to keep people who are medically vulnerable safe, caring for them through sickness and health, putting their own selves and their own health on the line. Caregivers do this with no paid days off, with no retirement, with 24 hours of sick leave for a whole year, one-time hazard payment that some of them received, and supplemental health care, which does something but is far from what's needed for them to be able to care for their own health care needs, even though they're healthcare providers themselves. We're not here to ask you to fix everything about IHSS. We don't think that that's within your power to do. But we are here to ask for your support on what's in your power as supervisors and county leaders to change. So let's change that this is the largest essential workforce in the county that makes minimum wage. IHSS caregivers and union members are proposing a $2 wage increase that costs the county around $178,000 yearly, but that also brings in $183,000 in new state funding and around $400,000 in federal funding. That's nearly $600,000 in funding that the county doesn't have right now. This would happen without touching the general fund at all, And this would happen to support a workforce that really needs to grow and not to shrink, actually, like it is right now, because there's a caregiver shortage in this county. And this would also support a workforce that lives and works in the county, that spends their money here, supporting and growing the economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm here humbly telling you and asking you, please, to think about it, because I take care of my dad. He's got dementia.
What is your name? What is your name?
Luby Smith. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Luby Smith. And I take care of my dad. My mom passed away. I take care of my son. He's special ed. And my husband's dying of cancer. And all we have is that. IHSS. So please think about it. Humbly, I really came here to ask you. I mean, it takes me a lot to speak in public, but I'm here because I really want you to think about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
My name is Adriana Jensen. I came in a little late today because I had my mom in ER last night, who I care for. Right now, they believe it's some kind of virus. So that's my priority right now. But right now, this is also my priority because, sorry, 5 weeks ago, my husband was killed in a hit-and-run incident, and the driver's still out there. This happened in Carmichael, California. And as you can imagine, there's a secondary loss to this. There's our financial impact that my mom and I are experiencing and trying to maintain our property. And I have a mom in ill health. The money that we need right now to support ourselves, I can't even explain how much is needed. And I'm asking for your help. Not just for me, but our healthcare workers. We're taking care of family, we're taking care of disabled. And the things that we spend our money on are our needs. We're not asking for money for wants. We're talking about spending money at our grocery stores. We're talking about rent, mortgage, toilet paper. I mean, your basic needs. But if we can get our needs met here in Amador, that will put money back into the economy. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. And thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you. Morning.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Manuel Lares, and I am the union representative for the IHSS workers here in Amador. I also represent Calvers and San Joaquin counties. And I really just want to reinforce how special you have to be an IHSS worker. I've been an organizer for 30 years. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I started my career in negotiating gang peace treaties that's reduced gang homicide rates by 75% in Los Angeles County back in the 90s. Through that process, I managed to create thousands of jobs, second chances for people who really turn their lives around. Saved probably hundreds of thousands of lives because of the peace work. But I've never been more proud than working with the IHSS workers in this county, because to me, they are true heroes. The work that they do is a testament to this state. It's a testament to the strength of our society. It's the envy. Our program is the envy of many states on how we take care of our seniors, our disabled, our young who can't manage on their own. It's a true testament to the strength of who we are as a people. And so it's real, and I understand the fiduciary and executive responsibilities of the Board of Supervisors and balancing the needs of the government and the private interests of individuals in your jurisdiction. But sometimes we have to look past we have to look past the numbers and really invest in people. And when we do that, the numbers look brighter. Not only because it brings in new income, as our proposal will do, but it enriches the lives of hundreds of people, maybe even thousands in this county overnight. So I just want to, when you look at the package that we submitted, we look at it with balance and understand that we're not just talking about home care providers, we're talking about real, genuine heroes. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment? Morning.
My name is Victoria Escalante. I've been with the union for 20 years or so. I took care of my mom for the last 15 years, and I kept her out of the nursing home. I think that there's proven facts that the patients will live longer in their own home because that's where the love is. I mean, I know she was my mom, and I was going to take care of her whether I was being paid or not. And most of that I didn't get paid because of the fact that the program wasn't that lucrative to me, and I was still working also. I worked for the phone company for 25 years, and then I retired, and then I ended up doing it full time for my mom. Now, she went through a surgery in in December, and I tried to keep her from COVID the whole time. It didn't work. She was in Stanford for a surgery. She ended up having to stay in a skilled facility for a few weeks. It didn't even last a week. COVID, I'm the one that tested her because the nurses didn't want to do it. I had to test her to make sure she was positive or negative, and she was positive. She didn't even last 3 days after that, and she was put into the regular hospital. She died, and I don't want everybody to think that it was a horrible thing that I did by letting her be in that skilled facility, but I feel like sometimes that was my fault that I had to have her put for her own health. But now I'm taking care of a lady that's blind, and I'm helping her, and it's bringing me joy because I can feel like I'm being useful again with her. She had to have both of her eyes removed, and she had glaucoma, and it's something new to her, so she's just getting used to being blind. And it's really a hard sense to lose. I mean, as far as your senses, and it's helping me to cope with my loss with my mother. But if not, she lives independently, and if she didn't, she would have to be put in a facility too if she didn't have anybody to come into her home to cook for her and to clean for her and take her to the grocery store, little outings that she likes to do. But keep that in consideration. They do live longer in the home, and that's what our workers do. And we are essential workers. We do work of nurses. We all have our specialties depending on the patient. So, but please look at it with your hearts and your minds. And I know that there's budget issues also, but just to let you know what we actually endure on a day-to-day basis as workers. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Mr. Chairman, we do have a comment via Zoom.
Okay.
Ms. Anderson, please go ahead when ready.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good morning. My name is Meredith Anderson, and I work for the Sierra Business Council, a nonprofit organization serving communities in the Sierra Nevada, like Amador County. Sierra Business Council runs the Sierra Nevada Energy Watch program, which is an energy efficiency program under PG&E. Through the Energy Watch, we offer free energy technical services to public agencies and small businesses within the Sierra Nevada region. These services range from assessing your facility's energy use performance, facilitating free building energy audits, and connecting you to funding opportunities to implement those energy efficiency measures that will save the county energy and money. We would also be able to help you track progress on your greenhouse gas inventory, energy action plan, or benchmarking reports, which were all developed by the Sierra Nevada Energy Watch program. We would work directly with Amador County staff and can assist in retrofitting or upgrading lighting, refrigeration, and heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems to save money during the summer and keep indoor air quality safe during wildfire season. We recognize that many of our rural public agencies are understaffed, under capacity, and on tight budgets. So we've set up our program to sit at your side of the table to serve as your energy manager. My team and I are aware that public agencies are being bombarded with sales pitches from consulting companies, some with pitches that seem too good to be true. We understand this can be overwhelming. So think of Sierra Nevada Energy Watch as a no-cost third party with your best interests in mind. We can help you vet consulting companies, determine energy project feasibility, and help you understand different programs or financial offerings to make sure that you're getting the best services and energy savings. The Sierra Nevada Energy Watch is able to offer these services at no cost because we are funded by the public purchase program charge that Amador County pays on their PG&E bill. You have already paid for these services, so we encourage you to take advantage of them. If helpful, we can also provide a more in-depth presentation on how we can serve you as an agendized future item at a future Board of Supervisors meeting. You can reach us by emailing us at snew, SNEW, @sierrabusiness.org. Please let me know if you have any questions, and thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you. We look forward to a presentation in the future on that. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am. Come on up. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Frechetti, and I've been with IHSS since 2010 when my husband is going to do this. Sorry.
Deep breath.
All right, take your time.
Okay. When my husband became disabled and I was no longer able to work, so it was a perfect opportunity for me. Oh God, why do I do this? Sorry. Anyways, so since then I've got 4 other clients, and I've been with them for about 4 years. They all have different disabilities. A couple of them have a COPD and are on oxygen. I have one woman that's schizophrenic, bipolar also, and diabetic, and we just got her through breast cancer. But I can't. Anyways, so you know, I think whatever you're, you know, or whatever is proposed of the raise, it's not about the money. It's about how our work is valued. And in that respect, it's about how our clients are valued, because we do a lot for them because we love them. You know, we get very attached. You can't help but get attached. They're like our family. Sometimes, a lot of times, we're their only family. And these are our elderly, our disabled, our handicapped, our mentally, you know, whatever. I don't even know. I'm sorry. Told him I was going to do this. Anyways, and our job doesn't stop when we leave work. We're on the, you know, we're always, they could call us anytime. We make doctor's appointments. We talk to doctors. We make, you know, we call in their prescriptions. We do whatever. We go pick them up, take them shopping or whatever they need to do. If they need doctor's appointments, it's a lot. It's a lot, but it's okay, because I would I love my job. I just feel like we deserve a little more. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, any other, yes, sir, no, okay. Any other public comment? Anyone else on Zoom? I just want to make a quick comment about the fire at, Ampine yesterday, which is really timber products, but devastating to the facility, to the personnel, to the company. We don't know where it's going to go from here, but there's 160 people that are unemployed right now, and also looking for employment for them. I've already had one company, SGI and I own, reach out and say that they have positions available. So really a pretty devastating loss for the county, and thank you to all our firefighters that made a quick response under some pretty harsh conditions to deal with, trying to get water to the fire immediately, and issues with the pumping system, but they persevered and actually saved some structures on that site. So thank you to all of our firefighters from every agency in the county and U.S. Forest Service. Supervisor Neto?
That was pretty much my comment, Richard. I was going to make, but I will say also, I think it'd probably behoove us to reach out to Ampine and maybe see if there's if they're interested in rebuilding. I think as a Board of Supervisors, as a county, we should do all we could do to try to help them any way possible, and see if there might be some funding. Maybe talk to our federal representatives, USDA, and the state people, and see what's available, because it's a pretty big hit to this community, and in jobs, and not only that, we've got a real big fire problem, and we've got way too many trees in our forests. And
well, let's stay focused on Ampine.
Yeah. So well, it is. Ampine is part of that picture, and with them gone, it's gonna be a big problem.
I think somebody else pointed out to me yesterday too that not just the loss of 160 jobs at Ampine and Amador County, it's all of the drivers that bring the material in, and all of the other suppliers, the people that haul the product that they create out. So I'm with you. It's anything we can do as a county to try and assist Ampine Timber Products to get back on their feet in the future, then we'll reach out to them. Any other comments? Just one last comment. Amador County Fair starts today. The animals go in today, and Thursday is the first day of the fair. So I know there's a lot going on out there, but try and support the Amador County Fair. They're just like anybody else. They need revenue to survive, and with the loss of the pari-mutuel betting that they used to get that money, it's pretty devastating to the fair industry, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done to the fairgrounds too. So go to the fair. All right, with that, going to approve of our agenda. We have some addendums. I'm going to cover all of the addendums right now, where I'd like to place them on the agenda. Addendum number 1, I'd like to place it as item 3 in the closed session agenda under property negotiations. Addenda item, regular agenda addendum number 1. Item 2, I'd like to place it on the regular agenda as item 3F on the regular agenda, that is Elections Department. And the consent agenda addendum, I'd like to place as item 5T on the consent agenda, Victim Witness Assistance Program Grant Application. So with that,
with those corrections?
Yeah, so that was approval on the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda with those placements on the agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Approval of items on the consent agenda with that addition.
So moved.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda with that addition. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll go to our regular agenda. Item 3A, Behavioral Health Agreement with Housing Tools for 22-23. Morning.
Fine.
Let me, just kind of set the stage here. So this, we've received a bit of feedback, through informal channels, nothing to the board, but, you know, that the No Place Like Home, project is creating a great deal of angst in Sutter Creek. As such, I would like to bring this, even though this is such a small part of that project, I would like to bring it to the full board, see if we elicit comment, because we have received the funding for the project. So the next contract will be the big one, and you'll get the full presentation, the full request to move forward with that project at that point in time. So if we need to start having that conversation as to whether or not this is what we want to go forward with, now is the time to start talking about it. Because to back off on an $8 million award is going to be a significant reversal of where we're heading. So I just want to get the board's thoughts, get the board thinking about it. But this contract right now, Melissa can explain what we're doing here. But that's why it's on regular agenda. Something this small would normally go on consent.
And it has been on consent since we first started working with Housing Tools back in 2018. But even though HCD has unofficially let us know that we would be getting this award, that because they have yet to do their press release, they're waiting for counties to move forward with anything until they can do that. That's why our plan working with Housing Tools is to then come back in August to a board meeting in August to explain when we get the official word that we have these funds. They've announced it officially at the state level, and then what are the next steps to see if the board will approve and let us move forward and what needs to happen. So because behavioral health has never claimed to be housing experts, and we don't really want to be, you know, we want to stick with behavioral health, but we know that housing is a big component, and the state has kind of made behavioral health departments kind of that hub for housing. And so in 2018, when we put out the RFP to get this contract, it was really the goal of Housing Tools, the contract with Housing Tools, is to really help our department, who are not housing experts, to move forward with any kind of housing funding and anything that comes down from the state or federal funding, so that we can help our community with the housing issue and incorporate behavioral health in that as well, because we know that mental health and substance use disorders is a part of that, and so all of that working together. So Housing Tools will help guide us through the process, and that's why, and we've renewed this contract every year, and that's why we are requesting to continue that work with Housing Tools, because they're our experts and we need them.
I've kind of taken the position that every community needs to do their part. This is not in the heart of Sutter Creek. You know, Ione's giving significant pushback now on a facility that's been proposed to be built for very low income, probably looks like Section 8 type housing, but a significant amount, over 250 units. So every community needs to do their part, but you know, there's a lot of pushback sometimes. Any other board comments?
Well, as far as what CAO Eiley brought up, if we can wait until we get the official approval from HCD, we could have a discussion or, you know, board agenda. We tried to bring this to the public in the past, and that didn't really materialize for those that were opposed. and we can discuss it again, or at least give them the opportunity, to say that. You know, the housing is needed. It's really a small, project when you think about it, and, it's in an area that's zoned for that type of development, so. And, the county does not really have a place for it. And, we're not building a leper colony or a nuclear waste dump site. So, you know, the state's in a housing crisis, you know, all over. You know, if they want to have a discussion, I think there are people that are, very supportive of it as well in Sutter Creek.
You and Supervisor Crew have met with some of the Sutter Creek leaders and discussed this, correct?
Yes,
Yes, we did.
the ones that were opposed.
And how did that go?
Well, with them, they wanted it moved. But there are, I think, other members of the council that are much more receptive.
Any other board comments?
Well, I think if we could have a talk about this with Sutter Creek, like an open public meeting where people come and voice their opinions, I think it'd probably behoove us to do it before HCD approvals if possible. I think that'd probably be a better time. And I would think if Sutter Creek has some issues, it'd be better for the people to come at our open meetings and say, hey, this is our concerns and why. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have a meeting between the local electeds talking about it, but if they want to talk about it, they should come here to open meetings and state what their problems are and have that discussion.
Well, and I would hope there's some people here to discuss it this morning. That's what we're here for. We've had the same complaint with the federal COVID dollars, that we haven't discussed it openly when we've discussed it 3 times openly.
Mr. Chair, we talked to the mayor and one of the city councilmen of Sutter Creek, and we brought that up, that there should be some open meetings about this, because you don't know what people think till you get them when they come to the microphone and speak. And they told me, and I quote, that they didn't want to do that because it would be tacit approval of the project. I don't know why we have to go out of our way to educate. They should be the lead in the education phase. But I don't think we need to hold this up. This is just to approve the financing, right?
This is to approve the contract with Housing Tools, which is our contract provider that helps, our consultant that helps us follow the rules and move forward, since we're not the housing expert. So when we come in, the plan is to come back in August, because HCD said they'll do their press release the beginning of August. And then when it's all official, then we will come back at a board meeting in August, probably towards the end of August, and Housing Tools and Danco, as well as Behavioral Health, will be present for that to explain what the next steps are, and then asking for approval moving forward. There'll be an MOU that comes from that, and I think there's a declaration, or there's some other things that come with that. So then that would be in the August meeting to move forward with about the funding.
And in the Sutter Creek Planning Commission, the next step for the cities?
I'm not exactly sure.
I believe that's where it is.
Yeah.
It would have to go through there next, right?
Yeah, because I know they've presented a site plan, and I know they're working on that. Sherry from Housing Tools is actually online. I don't know if she'd have a better answer to that question.
Let's go to Supervisor Ornetto first. He had a question.
And just a kind of a general question for maybe you or Chuck, possibly. I think part of the driving force behind this is you have to have some low-income, supportive type housing, kind of like a state mandate. And also, we don't have much housing for people in the county. But isn't that correct, Chuck? Part of the driver behind this.
Everybody's going to have to provide housing. The question is where does it go? And those who are opposed to this would like to have seen us put it up at Wicklow. with the money that we've got. We had our consultant, Danco, looked at Wicklow and couldn't pencil it out. It is where it is now because this is the best place they could find for it. It's certainly not optimum, but it's the best we can do. And you know, the state is throwing lots of money at this to try and get affordable housing built, and that's what this is. Ultimately, you know, half of this project is just regular apartments with anybody who qualifies to live there. And, you know, there will be services there provided for those who need them, but most of the residents will not.
And really, as it states, development of permanent supportive housing for persons who are in need of mental health services and are homeless, chronically homeless, or at risk of homelessness. So this is going a long ways in taking care of some of our homeless issues.
And I have a question on that. Is it, as far as people that qualify to be placed in those units, is it going to be people within Amador County, or is it going to be people from wherever that qualify?
Primarily going to be Amador County for the No Place Like Home unit. So the referral, because it'll have to go through the COC, and Stephanie might need to help answer some questions more specifically about the COC, but then that shows that they're qualified based on need for these units. But the referral and the approval would come from behavioral health. So we would have folks that are engaged in services, they're stable, continuing to engage in services where we are thinking that they're ready to be in permanent supportive housing. So it goes through the COC, and then they get ranked based on level of need. But it's Amador, Calaveras, Tuolumne, and Mariposa counties. So it's a multi-county. But the goal is to keep our folks in our county.
Right, and these folks are gonna have to go through like criminal background check, that are gonna have to have an income or qualify, including Megan's Law. So a lot of the concerns are there's a school close by, and, you know, people, you know, have a tendency of thinking the worst of everything. I mean, there was one person that spoke up at our meeting, and I think she's had some issues, you know, health issues, and, you know, she's, you know, just a really nice person. And I think that, you know, people just have a tendency of thinking the worst.
Why don't we take some questions from the representatives?
One thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Quick, Melissa, could you explain what COC means?
Stephanie's our expert in that. She's part of that committee.
Go to the meetings.
Yeah.
But it's our,
Can you identify yourself first?
Sorry, it's our continuum of care. It's federally recognized by HUD. It's California 526, so it's Central Sierra Continuum of Care. The administrative lead is ATCA, and it is comprised of the 4 counties, Calaveras, Amador, Tuolumne, Mariposa. And our coordinated entry system is how these tenants will be prioritized based on the VPSDAT. It's a screening tool that ranks their vulnerability. And based on how vulnerable they are, they get prioritized into whether or not they'll be placed into this housing. And usually local communities within the COC, we all go to these Monday calls and talk about who we have prioritized within our communities. And then, you know, we try to keep people in their communities. We don't try to displace people because there's housing over there 3 counties away. We want to keep them here where they're connected to services, connected to resources and whatnot. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Stephanie, can you identify what you do with behavioral health?
I am the Mental Health Services Act Programs Coordinator. So anything related to the Mental Health Services Act, including housing, No Place Like Home is actually secured by bonds through the Mental Health Services Act. So that's how I'm involved in this. And we do all of our community programs support, and we serve mentally ill through that expanded funding through the MHSA.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to go to our housing
Tools, Sherry?
Housing Tools representative, and then go to public comment, if we could. So.
Sherry's unmuted, so Sherry, you can jump in whenever you want.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is Sherry Morgado, Community Development Manager with Housing Tools. Just regarding the question that was posed about the process that Danco, who is the developer of the proposed affordable housing, permanent supportive housing development, is in, as Stephanie and Melissa mentioned, they have submitted their site plans and building plans for review to the city. And my understanding is that they are still engaged in that process with the city. As was mentioned, the site is zoned for this type of housing. So there is not any discretionary review that is needed in terms of the zoning. So my understanding is it would be just standard design review that would be going to the Planning Commission. But other than that, there would not be any discretionary approvals that would be needed. So Danco is still engaged in that process with the city, as was mentioned.
Sherry, I have one question for you. I am concerned too that this facility, I'd like it to primarily serve people from Amador County. So what is the process of selection? Is there any preference for Amador County people, or is it, oh, we have one for Amador, we need one from each other county, from the other counties now?
No. So as Stephanie was describing, one of the requirements with the No Place Like Home funding from the state is that the owners, the developers, and the county use your local coordinated entry system to select the individuals that are going to be living in the housing. So as Stephanie was describing, because you have a 4-county COC, that doesn't necessarily mean that people from the surrounding counties would be coming to live in the facility. As Stephanie mentioned, it's always the goal to keep people in their community where they are receiving services and where they have some degree of supports. So the idea would be that the individuals that your behavioral health department is already working with who meet the criteria are in the coordinated entry system. And then they would be, as Stephanie indicated, they would be ranked based upon their vulnerability. And then once these units are open, they would be referred for placement by behavioral health to the property manager. So I would say there's very little chance that it would be individuals from outside the county, because you have definitely, when you look at the population of individuals within Amador County experiencing homelessness who meet this criteria, there are definitely probably more people than there will be units. So there should be no problem selecting really exclusively from Amador County residents.
Thank you. Any other questions for Sherry? All right, thank you. And I'd like to take public comment now. Anyone on public comment? So that's part of my problem, is nobody shows up for it, and yet the suggestion is out there that we should have special meetings in Sutter Creek. But
Well, one thing I will say, I think maybe some of the people that may be having issues may not looking at this agenda item when they wouldn't really make much of a connection between the project and this.
you can always pick the phone up. Supervisor Axe is available, the rest of us are too.
Well, I think, we can have another go at having another public meeting, but, beyond that, I don't know if anybody looking at the agenda would make the connection on this particular item. This is really not a discussion of the project. This is a discussion of, having, Housing Tools be a kind of a special, agreement with them, so they may not be aware of that, but I'm more than happy to have them discuss with me. I've fielded lots of calls from other people and provided the information and spent a lot of time educating myself.
Now, speaking of a call, we have a Zoom caller right now.
We do. Please go ahead when ready and identify yourself.
Hi, this is Catherine Evett, Volcano area resident. I tuned in today not really realizing that you were going to talk about this, but I just want to echo what was said at the last meeting you had regarding this project. It's a much-needed project. It's in a very good place, next to transit, where services and infrastructure are available, not far from the HHS building, and it totally fits the criteria in state law. So I hope that you'll continue to proceed with the grant and move forward. And yes, get more public comment, but I hope everybody will be really clear about the benefits of this project to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other comments? Any other public comment? Yes, sir, come on up. Good morning.
Bill Heisenbuttel.
Bill, can you step over to that mic? Thank you.
Bill Heisenbuttel, resident here in Amador County. And I don't understand this whole project, but I'm gonna ask a question. Is this gonna happen in Sutter Creek?
It's not
In the
Sutter
city
Creek
limits,
proper.
Yes, in the city limits of Sutter Creek.
It is Sutter Creek, but it's not Sutter Creek, what I would call proper. It's not Main Street. It's up on Valley View Drive.
If it's close to Sutter Creek, I'm all in. It needs to happen.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, back to the board.
Well, I'll make a motion then to approve and sign the agreement with Housing Tools.
Again.
All right, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we'll see you again in August.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. We'll go to item 3B on the agenda, Planning Department consideration of the Planning Commission's recommendation to find the 2003 Kirkwood specific plan consistent with the Amador County General Plan. Mr. Beatty, good morning.
Morning. Chuck Beatty with the Planning Department. Excuse me. The government code requires that any specific plans or major land use policies that the county adopts have to be consistent with our general plan. And when the general plan was updated in 2016, it did include an analysis, a consistency analysis of the county zoning code, the regional transportation plan, the airport land use compatibility plan, and other policies. And it found that those documents or plans were consistent with the general or proposed general plan at that time, but the Kirkwood specific plan was not included in that analysis. So the analysis that's included in your packet just serves to correct that. The specific plan includes 233 objectives and policies that are listed in that analysis, and each one of those supports one or more policies of the county general plan. It doesn't work in reverse, where each one of the county policies from the county general plan is supported by the specific plan. You've got too many competing interests in the general plan to make that possible. For example, the county's general plan talks a lot about promoting and preserving the county's agricultural heritage, promoting ag tourism. Those kinds of things wouldn't be appropriate at a 7,800 elevation ski resort. So you won't find each and every policy of the general plan supported by the specific plan. The idea is that you find the specific plan, all of its goals and policies, consistent with policies that are in the general plan and support those policies that are in the general plan, and that's what this analysis does. The Planning Commission reviewed this item at their meeting on June 14th and recommended approval to the board, recommended that the board adopt finding that the Kirkwood 2003 Kirkwood specific plan is consistent with the general plan, and those findings are listed in your staff report.
So was this analysis performed in-house by the planning department, or did we have a consultant?
By staff.
Okay. Did Kirkwood, whatever the Kirkwood entity, did they have a consultant do any report or findings?
Kirkwood Mountain Resort had a consultant do a 10-year review of the specific plan to make sure that projects that had happened in Kirkwood were consistent with the plan that was approved. That was done 3 or 4 years ago, and so that was presented to the Alpine Board of Supervisors and Amador County Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
This went through the TriTac
it's not been presented to TriTac. This actually could have been done at the staff level and just filed, we found it consistent, but because there are projects that are still available to be developed in Kirkwood under the specific plan, and typically those will come to the Board of Supervisors for approval, or at least the Planning Commission. We felt that the Planning Commission and the Board should see the consistency analysis, so as you know, the specific plan is consistent with the general plan.
Yeah, one question I'd have is, you know, at times I think they have problems with, I don't know if they've solved it, but a while back there's problems with basically people parking, traffic backing up on the Highway 88. Are they working to address that, do you know?
Caltrans is working to address that through a series of overhead, highway signs, additional ones, I think 14 of them on Highway 88, 89, and other locations. But COVID changed that quite a bit because of the way they staggered ticket sales, and so they were almost on a reservation basis, so that you didn't have a large number of people showing up at Kirkwood on a holiday weekend when we just happened to have a heavy snow that was late in the season, and it was the last chance that everybody thought they had to ski, and that's what was causing that problem.
Okay.
One thing on your Supervisor Neto, the one thing they have done up there is per our agreement, they added another parking lot near Loop Road, which was part of our, because it kind of lost half a parking lot up near some building site.
So Timber Creek Ski School had an unpaved parking lot that was gradually going to be taken over by the Timber Creek Townhouse development, so that parking had to go somewhere else.
And it is complete
across the street.
And that parking lot is all complete and down at the off of Loop Road.
Other questions from the board? All right, I'm going to take public comment at this time. Any public comment? Anyone on Zoom? Not trying to rush this item, but there is no comments, so board action.
I'd move to adopt the recommended findings. 1, Kirkwood's specific plan is consistent with the goals and policies of the general plan use element. The Kirkwood specific plan contains no goals or policies which are contrary to, inconsistent with the goals and policies of the Amador County General Plan, and that the Kirkwood specific plan objectives and policies support applicable goals and policies of Amador General Plan.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3C, Administrative Agency, discussion of possible action relative to the Amador County Abandoned Vehicle Abatement Fee. Mr. Eiley, Mr. Gillette.
Supervisors, so this is a resolution to add this item, the $1 AVA abatement fee, to the November ballot. This is a fee that's been in place since 1991, and under the state statute, it could be approved by the board originally, and it was. And in between those, and for 10-year increments, and in between those approvals, Prop 26 passed, which basically made every fee tax unless they fell into certain categories. And so it sort of turned that statutory fee that the board could approve into a tax that had to be voted on. So in 2012, the board put this on the ballot, and it passed. And now it's back, so that it passed. It was in effect for 10 years. We're sort of back in that position. So this is the resolution that does that. If it doesn't pass, you'll lose that funding to fund the AVA program, and you will have to pay the DMV to disenroll the county. There's a sort of a administrative fee to sort of program us out of the fee. So there will be a cost to that if this does not pass.
Well, I think this is a really good program. We collect a lot of cars every year and get rid of them. Not everybody's buying a new car, so they're not paying this AVA fee, and it's been like I said, it's been a good program, and I think we need to renew this, so.
And it's also not just cars, it's motorhomes, and other vehicles that are licensed.
Yeah.
This, is there any money that we would be out additionally that we're paying for the abandoned vehicle program right now before it passes by the electorate, if it passes? So if it fails to pass, would we owe money, would we have paid money out of the general fund that would not be reimbursed?
So if this fee doesn't pass and then it expires, then the general fund would have to basically fund the AVA program. There is money in the program now. A big chunk of that would probably have to be paid to DMV to unenroll us, because the DMV is on a different cycle. So the DMV re-enrolled us in the program because that last 10-year, our 10-year is not on the same end date. So we're in their program, and if we come along after November and say, look, the voters didn't approve this to continue, we have to unenroll, then they will have to specially program their system to take us out, which will cost us.
Okay. So are there other outstanding fees we would be liable for or have paid already for abandoned vehicle abatement?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any further board comments?
Yeah, no, I'd just like to say, I think it's a good deal. You get vehicles abandoned. I know people hate them in their neighborhood, and it gives the county a mechanism to remove those vehicles, and everybody pays a little chunk of it and takes care of the issue. So I support it.
I know my district, the Comanche area, code enforcement has been very helpful in helping the association out in Comanche deal with the abandoned vehicles, and it's a great service for the whole county, and we take care of a lot of the blight that we have in the county that otherwise would be sitting out there on properties. So if there's no further board comments, is there any public comment on this item?
Well, I just want to point out, it's only $1 per vehicle registration, so be nominal.
All right, thank you, and I'm seeing no comment from the public, so board action.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second. Okay.
Who was first? Supervisor Brown?
Yeah.
All right, so moved and seconded to approve the resolution. And this will be on the ballot then with this action. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Just one more thing. We could have just not done anything and had this stay in place, but it would have been subject to challenge by someone. Is that correct?
Well, I guess there's some question. So like I was saying, originally, this was a statutory fee that the board, if the cities approved of it as well, the board and the cities could just impose. I think Prop 26 changed that because every fee became a tax unless it was in a specifically enumerated category. And this just doesn't seem to fit into one of those allowable categories that could still be fees. Puts it into the tax category. It's the same decision that you made in the board made in 2012. Felt that it was probably more like a tax, but there are some jurisdictions, I think, that are just putting it on as a fee.
And could be subject to
it could very well be subject to a challenge.
So we're taking the safe route. Thank you. Yep. All right, we'll go to our next agenda item, 3D, discussion of possible action relative to funding a new position under the Economic Development Director to seek and administer grants. And alternatively, the position could be filled utilizing consultants. Mr. Hopkins?
Well, this is me. I've talked to both Supervisor Brown and I believe it was Supervisor Oneto at some point in time about this issue. And I thought it might be good to bring it forward and talk to the full board about it. Grants are a constant challenge for the county because the state and the feds like to give us money through grants because they can control it a little bit better. And as such, it takes a great deal of effort and administration to oversee and administer those grants. And ultimately, we need to have somebody ready to respond when a grant goes out. Right now, we've been piecemealing it. We've been working with private entity. I know Mr. Heisenbettel's here, and they've been a great help with a lot of the forestry grants that have been coming out, the fuel reduction grants, and they are handling those on our behalf very well. That works out well. Another good example is the grants we had with HCD and that John and his staff did for AWA to get them their money, but that took a lot of effort on our part. So this is the kind of position that we need to have to handle those requirements when they come up. So we either need to I guess, make the investment and hire somebody on staff or get consultants on staff, which, or not on staff, but under contract, so that we can respond to grants when they get advertised. Public Works is already in the process of getting a grant administrator on board through a consultant contract so that they can respond to transportation grants. But there are a lot more than that we would be looking to respond to. So John can chime in with anything you want to add.
Well, no, I would agree. And when you talk about HCD and the, for example, the AWA, the water project grant up there, that was a consultant with Terry Cox. And we have now lost her, not in a good way, but she retired. So it's, we also have a consultant with Chabot College right now for the micro businesses grant that we're seeking. And it also takes a great deal of resources, and we're looking to set up a training here. I know that Karen Warburton out of my office is looking at setting up a training with them so that they can get that message out to the community, to know how to apply, to go through all those hoops. But it takes a great deal of effort, and we decided to use that consulting firm or that avenue, and it seems to work best rather than hiring a position. I don't know how familiar all of the board members are with grants in regards to applying for a grant, administering the grant, and then closing out a grant. But whether it's a state or feds, it is an arduous process to go through, and we don't have the resources, and we typically use a consultant for those resources that have expertise in certain areas as well. Some of the grants that we get involved with, we don't even qualify for. We don't even get off first base. We don't even qualify for the grants. We had a $1.5 million CDBG this round come through. We weren't going to qualify for it because of the criteria set by the federal government to get 80% of low to moderate income folks targeted for those funds. So, and that takes an effort to do that research and to find that information to see where we're going. Looking at Supervisor Axe and Supervisor Crew, we know some of the grant efforts, and some of the board knows some of the grant efforts with broadband and the processes that we're going through right now with some of that, with the CPUC and Caltrans. I don't want to paint a gloom picture, but it's a challenge, and sometimes I want the board to make sure you're aware of that when you raise your hands for something too, it's not free. A lot of these things come with obligations that go on for years that obligate the county to it, like the Pine Grove Town Hall or jail project, even though it's not a grant, it's leaves revenue bonds, but similar process. and you need to have the money in a very short time, most of the time, to come up with that match. So you see grants administrators a lot of times, or economic development programs say, hey, we brought $3 million into the county, but it also costs the county $1 million to play in that arena. A lot of economic development agencies also are funded by their TOT, which this county doesn't do at all. So I'm not discouraging the board at all. I could always use help, always. But I want you to be well aware of the fact that there is a administrative process and oversight that is very, very arduous to go through. And a lot of times we don't even qualify for some of these grants that we get involved with. And we look at all kinds. The library, there's another grant that we're closing. We're still closing that grant out. So if you got any questions, I'm here to answer those questions. But
John, if we had somebody on kind of a contractual basis, would that be helpful?
It would be, and allow us to target appropriately. You know, the one thing I don't want to do is just get somebody on board that's just always looking at grants. Mm-hmm. There are thousands, tens of thousands of grants to take a look at, and if you have any experience, you're going to be able to know what you can target right away. And if you have the ability, the expertise to deal with a water project versus a micro business grant, and they are specialties. The food bank, we're still dealing with the food bank, and even though it's called a grant, it was an appropriation, and it took us from April to November to get awarded for that. Just want you to be aware of, you know, I wish boards and city councils spent more time focused on policy, changing those policies. I have been in many numerous meetings with feds and state folks to say, make the process easier. In fact, I think, Pat, years ago, you were in a meeting with me with the feds. Yep. And that was my comment then. Get out of their own way. I'm not a fan of grants. I'd rather just have the state or the feds say, here's the money and let the locals decide what they're going to do with those funds. That would be the easiest thing to do. But that's not going to happen because everybody.
I agree with you 100%.
So I'll take the help anytime. But I think right now it's better served maybe seeking somebody out on a contract like a Terry Cox, but they're hard to find. They just are.
No, John, I think got some very good advice, and I think I support doing this, but I think we should give this, whatever, probably contractor or be more consultant. We should give them some marching orders. We're not just out to get grants that serve no purpose. That the benefit is minimal and the cost is great. There's a lot of money floating around out there now, so I mean, it's kind of probably behooves us to do this. But it's something you can spend $1 billion and it costs you $1.1 billion. That's
well, the micro business grants that we're dealing with. I think the allotment was 48,000. We're giving 9,000 of the administration to Chabot College. We're having difficulty just even identifying who is defined and qualifies as a micro business in Amador County. We got to get that information in order to get people to apply. So we'll probably be using this board chambers to get that message out. I'm kind of getting that message out now that we're looking for those people. So if you're a micro business, whatever that means yet, I don't have that definition clear in my mind. There's a $2,500 no match grant that you're going to be able to get. We figure we'll be able to support about 15 businesses with the allotment that we had. It's not a lot, but still a process to go through.
And that information is on the front page of our website.
Yes, it is.
You know, the writing grants, exploring grants is a very specialized area. I've been on this board for over 20 years, and we've talked about this and looked at different companies that give us the whole array of grants for us to look at, and we tried that. It doesn't work for county departments to spend part-time on that. Either have to have a full-time person or a full-time consultant, and I would much rather go with a consultant on this position because with what just happened with CalPERS showing a loss for the year, or I don't want to hire another employee. Our unfunded liabilities are going up as it is.
I couldn't agree more. We have no disagreement there. We just gotta be able to find somebody.
Well, a consultant, and we need to give them specific areas to research. I agree, there's a lot of money out there, but it's like a maze trying to negotiate it unless you're an expert in the field. Like Terry Cox was, like some other people are that, have extensive knowledge and expertise.
And remember too, a lot of these grants, it's one of the biggest challenges is a lot of times there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and then here's the RFP, or here's the process, and you got to respond within 30 or 60 days. It's a very short period of time to put something together. And then there's the obligation. You got to have the money to match it, 50%, 80%, whatever that is. So we struggle with that. You know, we're not loaded with dollars.
Right, and you need good advice. As a former undersheriff said, they didn't even apply for a lot of grants when he was undersheriff because they looked at the staff time to administer that grant was going to exceed the benefit.
Well, so the board knows, Supervisor, Mr. Chairman, you may have been here, I'm not sure, but years ago, we used to have a department, grants. It was under general services. I've, you know, been there, done that, got the T-shirt, so to speak, and nothing's really gotten any better administratively with the state or the feds with the processes that they've been embarked on.
Okay, any other board comments? Any public comments? Yes, Mr. Heisenbuttel.
Yeah.
That's all right. Take your time, John. I'll wait as long as it takes to hear your expertise and knowledge.
Wisdom.
Wisdom?
Yeah.
John Heisenbuttel, I'm wearing my Amador Fire Safe Council hat right now.
All right.
And as Mr. Riley has pointed out, Fire Safe Council has a lot of experience with fuel reduction grant in the county. And we believe we're doing a pretty fair job representing the county and getting work done with fuel reduction work. One thing we have learned, and this echoes a lot of what John says, is we've learned we have to be really strategic about the type of grants we go after. First off, I agree with John, it takes a lot of staff time to prepare a grant, administer a grant, and close out a grant. As a result, we generally don't go after grants that are less than $500,000 because of the amount of time. We don't go after grants that give us money but don't fit within our strategic mission. Supervisor Neto said, hire a consultant, but give them marching orders. Marching orders to me is the board being really strategic about the type of grants you want a consultant to chase. I mean, for our county, it could be roads, it could be for buildings, whatever, but the board really needs to identify strategically what you want them to go after. We've learned the hard way at the Fire Safe Council about going after grants that require hard cost share. If the grants allow in-kind cost share, then we're all in because we've got a lot of volunteers and we've got other grant money that can be used as cost share money. So I think John had it about right. Full-time staffer, sure wouldn't recommend. Strategically directed consultant, that's probably the way you want to go. Thank you.
Also, I must say, I don't agree with your assessment that the Fire Safe Council is doing a pretty fair job. I think you're being very humble. I think the whole Fire Safe Council has done an exceptional job. So thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. You know, yeah, you've learned how to write the grants, but as you said, you've learned how to be strategic and go after those grants that really make sense.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it as a nonprofit organization. I've worked with many other nonprofit organizations. that chased money. And they failed because they were chasing money outside of their mission. The board just needs to think about what the vision is, what the strategy is.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And let me just add real quick that this isn't intended in any way to take anything away from the Fire Safe Council with what we're doing here. I think that's working great. Our plan is with the fuels reduction project we just got was to let the Fire Safe Council keep the admin fee, which funds them. They do all the admin, and it saves us the effort. So really, this is kind of the process we see going forward with the consultant. But
I think the Fire Safe Council understands where we're at, yeah.
Just make sure they don't think that we're trying to replace them.
And please don't misinterpret that we don't see this as a threat at all.
Yeah, I think also broadband was mentioned, but also the infrastructure bill. There probably will be a need to apply for shovel-ready projects for funding from that as well, so.
Well, that's a difficult chore because strategically, if we identify a shovel-ready project, the county's putting up money, fronting money to get that ready. That's plan specs, design, all that kind of stuff. And you do that under the umbrella of not knowing whether or not you're even going to be successful in getting it approved. So you could spend $100,000 on consultants to have a shovel-ready project and never have it approved at the state or federal level because you're competing. It's a competitive grant. I also want to make a point to the board that just because you have a consultant or you have somebody like a Terry Cox or something like that, that doesn't remove staff from being involved. They still need the county liaison, the county individual to talk to and sign forms and to talk about what challenges come up with whatever project's going on through a grant. So you got that too.
And one thing too, John, I think it's something we're looking at doing. It's not saying we'll do it forever, but there's going to be it appears there is a lot of federal money floating around, state money, and I think if we go after the right grants, it could be very beneficial. I don't want to go after grants just to say, oh, we brought in so many hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the benefit was minimal and the cost was great. Whether it's dollars or even staff time. So I think we get what Mr. Heisenbuttel and what you're saying. I understand that.
It is, and the library is a great case for that. That's something that the board embarked on because the main goal for that was to remove all of the hazardous waste, which we did, and bring that building up to ADA compliance. So since you had those obligations anyway, to be funded at 35% through USDA was a good thing. Has it been a pain? Yeah, but it benefited us at least 35% of that, and we're still closing that out. But that's kind of a strategy, an idea, a thought of what you go and target.
And the other thing about grants is, unfortunately, a lot of them are focused and targeted for large counties or suburban counties. Very few really make it competitive for rural counties to apply. So that's where our consultant needs to focus on, is looking for those opportunities.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Small counties don't have the resources that larger counties do, but the larger counties, a lot of those economic development departments are funded through their TOT.
So it's not even resources. It's sometimes a lot of times there's a big bias towards the large counties where the money is supposed to go. And as we've seen in the past, with our HVAC system for the DA, we had to go to 13 meetings in Sacramento where the large counties were funded directly.
Right.
Because they had the capacity, at least that was the reasoning. So with that, any other public comment? And I think the direction I'm hearing from the board is to go with a consultant rather than to hire an employee for this. Is that correct?
Yep.
Supervisor X?
Yeah, well, it's a good way to get involved and see how things go, figure out what the problems are.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Riley. Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. We'll take care of the minutes before we go to a break before our public hearing.
We had the election thing, if we could
do that addendum.
I put that item on after the minutes, I think, so.
We have a public hearing, so it'll take.
You think we should hear that right now?
No, I'm just,
Yeah.
otherwise you'll have to do it after the public hearing.
I'm okay going ahead.
Well, we have to go to a break anyway. 10:30 is our public hearing. Does the board just want to roll through?
We
Or
just
do you
do
need
the
a break?
elections, take a 5-minute break, and then do the public hearing.
That's where I'm at. So I make a motion to approve minutes with minor changes.
Okay,
Second.
that's what I was waiting for. Thank you. Moved and seconded to approve the minutes with changes. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll go to a break and come back with our 10:30 public hearing. Is that okay?
Do elections?
We thought we were gonna do
Okay,
elections.
we'll roll through our 10:30 timeline then. So we'll go to, item 3F, addendum, elections department resolution adopting the canvas of votes cast.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Well, we've had a lot of personnel changes in elections in the last 30 days. And in the kind of rush to finalize the formalities of June to move on to November, I put in the agenda item to submit the certification. But then after talking to county council, realized that also there is an action because you have to accept as elected those that are not moving on to November. So I also thought this would be a perfect time to do that and to introduce you to the new Chief Deputy Registrar of Voters. This is Shaughnessy Machado, and she's coming to us with over 20 years worth of elections experience from Merced County. We had Cynthia Greer retire about the third week of June, and she has been replaced by Cindy Landergan. And then Mark Hammergan moved out of state on July 1st. And so that's our,
Welcome aboard.
yeah,
Welcome.
Yep.
with our
Welcome.
staff of 2 full-time employees, so we have 2 new full-time employees.
Right. Now, our agenda item, do you have any comments on it?
No, unless you, we hit almost 57, just shy of 57% turnout, which is about 30% higher than the state. We have 2 races that'll go on to November, the sheriff's race and District 5 supervisor. But other than that, it went well, it was smooth and.
So your only runoffs are for District 5 supervisor and for sheriff, correct?
Correct.
And coming up in the fall, there'll be elections for some city councils,
Mm-hmm.
All of them.
all of them?
All the
Okay.
city councils.
And probably some special districts too.
I don't know that they'll go to ballot yet, but the districts will be there, as well as the ADA.
And a vehicle abatement issue,
Mhm.
so,
And possible school bond measure, so we have a few.
all right.
Mhm.
Any other comments by board members? Any public comments? Seeing none, so board members, your action to approve the canvas.
So move.
Okay.
Moved and seconded to approve the resolution approving the canvas. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
All right.
The board does need a break then, is that correct? Yeah. Okay, at this time, we'll take, about a 10-minute break and come back. Anyone have a supervisor on Nettle siding?
I will say he was at the closed session at 8:28. A new record for him.
That is true.
Here he comes. Heard him anyway.
Call our meeting back to order and go through to our 10:30 public hearing now that it's 10:40. This is, Planning Department Zoning Ordinance Amendment ZOA-225-1, consideration of the Planning Commission's recommendation to approve 3 amendments to the county code that would extend the initial term of permits for temporary mobile homes and recreational vehicles used for disaster relief. 2, extend the initial term of permits for temporary mobile home and recreational vehicles used during the construction of a dwelling. And 3, decrease the minimum size of a single-family dwelling from 800 square feet to 360 square feet. Mr. Beatty.
Excuse me. Good morning again. Chuck Beatty with the Planning Department. In April, the board approved a resolution of intent directing staff on the Planning Commission to move forward with 3 specific amendments to the county zoning code. Those 3 amendments would, number 1, they would extend the term of, the initial term of RV or mobile home used for disaster relief if someone's house was damaged by fire, flood, snow load, et cetera, from an initial term of 2 years to 3 years, and would eliminate the 10-day notice to property owners with 300 feet. The second amendment would change the term for what we call the trailer while building when someone uses an RV or a mobile home on the site where they're building a single-family home, and they have to have a building permit first before this permit is issued. It would just allow that permit then to run coterminous with the life of the building permit. Before there was some overlap in that, and this just streamlines it and makes it, as long as the building permit's valid, then your trailer while building permit is valid. And the third amendment would change, the county has a minimum size for single-family dwellings that is 800 square feet with a minimum width of 20 feet. Would eliminate the 20-foot width requirement and reduce the minimum size to 360 feet. That amendment was discussed by the Land Use Committee and felt that that would help alleviate some of the economic hardships associated with single-family home construction. It was reviewed by the Technical Advisory Committee, the Land Use Committee, and in June 14th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and recommended approval to the Board of Supervisors with the findings that are included in your staff report.
And there was no change to any of the items from the Planning Commission?
There was no change at the Planning Commission level and no change from the original resolution of intent that was approved by the board.
Okay. Any board comments? All right, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Is there any public comments? Good morning again.
Morning. Bill Heisenbuttle, resident here in Amador County. Anyway, it's estimated that Amador County already has 460 trailers with full-time residents here in the county. My question is how many of these are already permitted, or if they are permitted? Those that don't have permits, will they be required to get one or be required to leave? Will time start when the permit is issued, or will it be back when the trailer first moved in? Trailers I know of, that I know have already been here in the county well over 3 years. And none of these trailers have existing dwellings with them. The trailers sit by themselves. And, you know, I'm kind of caught in a pickle here because I am a property rights guy. I believe I don't want to be told what I have to do. Unfortunately, not all of us, get to live in the middle of a ranch where you don't really have neighbors right next door to you that you have to deal with. The trailers in our subdivision are destroying the values of our properties and our homes. We're going backwards. That's one reason, one really big reason that the county has to enforce the codes we already have. Also believe that Sutter Creek will never have trailers or a homeless population, maybe tiny houses for weekend rentals. These new codes won't apply to Sutter Creek, although Sutter Creek residents will encourage the board to adopt these, knowing that it won't happen in their backyard. 4 years ago, I learned that code enforcement needs a complaint of a code violation before they act on it. 4 years ago, I filed 2 complaints. One, OK Corral burnout, still there. Another, corner of Highway 88 and West Inspiration, temporary housing, still there. If the codes the county already has are not enforced, tell me why I should go get a building permit for the new home I'm going to build. As long as there's not a complaint. Code enforcement has failed the residents of Amador County with the codes the county already has. Why should we believe that code enforcement will enforce these new codes? Right now, 460 trailers in code violation makes me wonder, is it easier to enforce the code or to change it under the guise of compassion? Thank you.
Before you leave,
Sir.
I think we can answer some of your questions. Code enforcement is being more aggressive now and following through on enforcement. I think they'll probably get to your cases. We just did 3 at our last board meeting. So it's on a complaint-driven basis. So I anticipate those complaints you filed to come back in the future.
There was actually 3 other trailers at the abatement hearing, and we, they were going to remedy the situation, so we were going to look at them in 3 to 6 months.
I think you're right. I mean, why do we have rules on the books if we don't enforce it? So I think we're trying to follow through now, and it's for, as you said, it is ruining communities, but it's also hard on the environment. Some of these cases we saw don't have good sources of sewer, water.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Heisenman.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this doesn't really
Can I ask
change.
one more question? Sorry. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And I want to just understand, does the complaint still have to be filed for code enforcement?
Yeah, because
So
we
we
don't
still
know,
gotta follow
we don't know about it. We don't have staff that can just go around through the community looking for
Okay.
violations.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
that's right.
Yeah, we're not out there looking
Yeah.
for trouble, because if we did, we'd be going on everybody's property and finding buildings that have been put up with no permit. I don't know, while it shouldn't be done, we're not gonna be snooping around people's property. It has to be complaint driven.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, these 2 changes with respect to trailers are, one's for disaster relief and the other's really for, extending the temporary, if you're actually building, a dwelling.
Come on up, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm John Donor, and I'm a resident of Amador County and have been for over 20 years. And my wife's family's been here since the inception. And my concern is about that proposed reducing the amount of square footage and creating these tiny houses. And maybe I'm unclear, but it seems as if my fiduciary responsibility will be usurped by you folks if you pass that. And let's say, as an example, I have a $500,000 house on a piece of property on just a lot in Jackson, and next to me is empty, and then you decide to okay a 360 or 50-foot tiny house. How does that affect the value? That might cost 60 or 70 grand to build, and how does that affect the value of my home, let alone all the other homeowners in the county? And what are the plans for these tiny houses, locations? None of that seems to have been addressed, and maybe I'm out of the loop, but I would like to hear what the actual ramifications are and what the actual plans are, rather than just ceding our responsibility as homeowners to you folks who make a decision and then the chips start to fall.
I'd like Mr. Beatty to come up and address some of that. And the other thing I'd like you to address is what Mr. Heisenbuttel brought up about these tiny homes becoming weekend rentals.
Let me address that one first. Right now, the county doesn't have a short-term rental policy, so any dwelling that's in the unincorporated area is available for short-term rental, for vacation rental.
So are you saying we need to create a policy then on that?
That would be at the board's discretion, but we proposed one a couple years ago that was either denied or rejected or didn't get very far.
Yeah. Okay. And this, the gentleman's comments on where these are placed, obviously be only unincorporated that we would have control over.
Right, it would only be in the unincorporated area, and right now the minimum is 800 square feet. So you're reducing that by a little bit more than half.
Question, can we put constraints on homes of certain square footage that they have to fit into the community that the property is in? And can we also, if it's below a certain value, can we say that it has to be used for permanent housing? Are we allowed to do anything like that, or is that discriminatory, or?
We'd have to look at it, but I mean, yeah, I don't know, off the top of my head, we'd have to look at what you wanted to propose and whether it's allowable.
Okay.
I mean, those issues aren't that much different if you built an 800 square foot house right next to a large house.
Right.
You'd have the same problem. So I don't know where you want to, you either want to allow the smaller houses or you don't. If we want to revisit whether we have a vacation rental ordinance or, you know, we can regulate that. We were going to, but, I don't know.
Now, when, you know, as far as as we talk about property values, when I refinanced my home, you know, when the appraisal came in, it came in with alike homes. You know, they had to run around outside my neighborhood to see what alike homes are, you know, for property values. So, you know, property values, as far as I see, my house wouldn't be appraised the same thing as a 360 square foot home next door to mine.
On a piece of property, on the discussion of weekend rentals, a person, depending on the zoning, would be only be able to put up one home, correct? Unless the zoning allows multiple homes?
The state law changed a few years ago that virtually allows 2 dwellings on every, what used to be single-family parcel.
Yeah, you're talking like a grandmother's quarters or...
Right, so there has to be a primary house, which right now has to be at least 800 square feet. And then the secondary, the accessory dwelling unit could be smaller than that. And there's the fees are there's a graduated scale based on the size of the house for the fees.
Or you could put up 2 homes that are 360 square feet?
If this ordinance is adopted, yes.
Yeah, I think we might want to go back, if this is adopted, and look at the weekend rental rules, so we don't have people taking this ordinance and making a mockery of it, basically by just building to have rentals that are out there for recreational purposes.
Hey, Chuck, if someone were to build this new 360 80 square foot house, they would pay full impact fees. It would only, the reduction would only apply to the second accessory dwelling, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Gillot, could we restrict the usage of the house so that it cannot be built and used primarily for a recreational rental?
Probably, but as part of so if you were to do a vacation rental and say no homes below 800 square feet can be a vacation rental, you could probably pass that kind of an ordinance. I don't know, you could do it, I mean, you can't do it today.
I need the board's opinion on that, and the public's too, so.
Yeah, should we revisit the vacation rental ordinance and maybe consider a more abbreviated form?
Good.
Yeah, do the two ordinances work enough together where we should hold off on this, or are they more independent, do you think, Chuck?
They're independent.
I think the land use committee could revisit that weekend rental or vacation rental ordinance and try again, and we would need a resolution of intention to look at that, correct?
Correct. And as memory serves, I think that's where it died last time.
Well, it also was the fees that, you know, because that was going to be the charge to control the system. And that's where a lot of people came in here and were objecting to the fees that would be on our vacation homes.
Okay, so the board is, from what I'm hearing, ready to move forward on this?
Yeah, I have a comment. It's, I heard what Mr. Heisenbuttel said, and I do sympathize with him. I'm a little bit torn on it because also what it costs to build a home anymore has went out of sight. You're probably talking offhand, probably $300 a square foot, be my guess, roughly. So you go build an 800 square foot home, you're probably looking $250,000, not just to build it, let alone the lot and water and sewer and all that. You're probably talking, getting probably more like $350,000, $400,000. And you've got young families, sometimes they want a home. You need something more affordable. Now, yeah, maybe could it lower home values existing? Possibly, probably not that much, I wouldn't think. But you got, so people looking, I mean, you go try to find a rental or an affordable home anywhere in California, it's pretty hard. And if you're starting out as a young family, say you got, you know, a single person and no kids, you don't need 2,000 square foot home. You need a kitchen, a bathroom, and a place to sleep. So yeah, then there could be the vacation rental things could be a problem. And that actually are a problem in what was house up in Surrey Junction, what's that, probably 10,000 square feet? And we had a problem with vacation rentals up there. It's not just the size.
I think it was between 5,000 and 7,000 square feet.
Yeah. Probably the bigger homes in the county, and it was a real problem. So I don't know if it's just necessarily small, it makes the problem. It can be the big ones too.
Well, I think the intent of this is to create permanent housing for people, allow people to afford something. And even, you know, one thing that came to my mind was what would it cost to build a house that's 380 square feet? And it's probably still a pretty significant cost, even though it might be more attainable for people of lesser means. I don't see somebody in certain neighborhoods buying a parcel, especially an expensive one, and then putting something like this on it. I mean, it probably will happen, much to the consternation of the neighbors. So that's something to keep an eye on. But most likely, people are gonna, they're moving to that neighborhood for certain reasons. So they probably want to have a house that's comparable. But still, it's you know, that's kind of the crunch that we're under, is that, housing is so, unattainable. And I looked at the plans for some of these, and they're very cozy. You know, they have like or either like a studio setup. Some of them have a single bedroom, but it's not a place you're going to spend a lot of time in.
Speaking to Mr. Eiley on the break, we measured it off in there. It's about 15 by 18 feet. Not very much room.
Yeah, it's not really big, you know. So usually your living room is kind of where you'll have your bed too, but some of them had. But it's, you know, it's kind of like an apartment in a way.
And going back to Mr. Heisenbell's comments on the, trailers, yeah, that's what we're seeing. A lot of these people have been living in their trailers for a long time and wondering, why are you kicking me out now? The answer is it's complaint driven, and we're sorry, but, the county has rules and laws and ordinances on the books, and when we get a complaint, we follow through on it, and hopefully we'll follow back on those two that you came up with too. So, any other public comment? Don't see any Zoomers. One more. Come on up, sir. Good morning.
My name is Steve Thompson. I'm a 50-year resident of Amador County and a builder. Just the conversation that you guys have just had is why I think everything I had in mind has been addressed, but some issues just popped up, and they're huge. On the tiny home, I do know that in order for that to happen, it's got to have a foundation under it. It's got to have a permit. It's got to have all the things that we do when we build a $1 million house. Yet, we have right down on Main Street, Martell, these type of sheds that people are looking at to make homes out of them. Some people already are. They've got trucks now that cost probably $500,000 that have beds that will come and get this 500 square foot building that's built in a yard somewhere with a plywood floor, and load them on, and one guy can deliver them on site and unload those things by himself. The public won't even know the biggest share of the people that want to live in that small home are going to get permission by somebody to let them put them in their backyard. They're going to go down there and buy that thing down there in Martell, and they're going to have it delivered. They're going to call Bill to come in and sheetrock it. There's not going to be a foundation under it. There's not going to be a permit. And the only way that they're going to be responsible is if someone turns it into code enforcement. And it's going to go crazy. I mean, there's people already doing it. That leads to my question. If people do complain or see this happening and they want to complain, but they're worried about the repercussions, is it anonymous? Can you complain anonymously to code enforcement?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I've got a customer right now I'm building a shop for, and up behind Big Trees Market, and I was telling her I was coming down to this meeting, and she goes, "Well, we've had problems in here." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She says, "Well, we were out on John and I were out on a walk, and we went across this piece of property. There was no fence or anything, and there's a trailer house sitting on it, and we could smell something. It was pretty foul smelling, and as we walked through to get to the creek, we could see the sewage line coming from the trailer dumping right into the creek. The sewage is going to be the biggest thing of all in all of this. Because even that small house, the small house that gets moved in illegally, I don't know if they're going to go into the people that let them move in and put the house there, are they gonna go into their house and use the bathrooms? Because, I mean, you put a bathroom in one of those little small houses and a bed, and if you're gonna live in it, you gotta have a kitchen. I mean, it's a bed, a little bit of a counter with a sink, and a bathroom. So,
It's cozy.
I mean, I can picture it, but to be done right, it's gotta be done where a planning department planned it, planned an area, put in a septic system that would encompass all the ones that were gonna be moved in there, which is basically what some of these cities are doing to try to alleviate the homeless problem. They're following from the ground up, they're making it work. But in Amador County, this has the real possibility of turning into a nightmare.
Well, they're going to have septic systems and things like that, water, you know, they'll have to have a well. Chuck, could you address, like, will they have to file plans with the building department? I know that we do permit, prefabricated homes, but, I was looking at plans for these tiny homes, so like a builder would actually build it from scratch.
And before you do that, sir, we already have that nightmare with all of the trailers around, as the people you know have experienced. They should be filing an anonymous complaint on that.
Right.
We don't want people to be dumping their effluent into our creeks or anywhere else.
So I'll just leave it with, this expands the problem that you just said, that I'm referring to. All three of these items can possibly expand that, double the problem we already have, because you gotta have in place a way to keep the illegal part from happening.
Well, that's code enforcement, and she is being more aggressive now with her actions. We've got a lot of cases of complaints coming in and code enforcement acting on them, on people living in trailers and dumping their effluent illegally, not having a water system, power. Some of them structurally aren't even fit. Thank you, sir. If you want to address Supervisor Axe's statement.
Yeah, so the reduction in size doesn't change anything with respect to the state building code. They still have to be built to the state building code. Just as
Even if they're prefabricated?
even prefab units have to have there has to come with a certification that says.
So they wouldn't be able to take a tool shed, prefabricated tool shed, and convert that into a house legally?
You'd have to have engineered plans to do that. You know, people do that with cargo containers, but there are engineered plans that go through the building department to make sure that that structure complies with the state building code.
I tried putting a larger shed on it, and it was a simple tough shed, but the tough shed didn't want to give me engineered plans, and since it was going to be a 20 by 20 shed, couldn't put it on their property, so it was kind of an interesting situation.
Interestingly, they wouldn't provide plans.
Yeah, and like Comanche with their homeowners association, they haven't had people living in the sheds or containers. They did have a gentleman who was a contractor convert his container to an office, which they took enforcement action on within their association and forced him to dismantle it. Then he went on the association board and found out what the rules were, so. Any other public comments? Yes, sir. You're next, John. Morning.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I'm Roy Butler. I live up in Jackson Pines Development. Back of me is the BLM management area. And so many times I've seen this happen. I was in the construction business since 1974. I retired about 8 years ago from that, of which now I draw house plans for people. And most of my house plans are of the higher dollar amounts. The problem I'm seeing about a development like this with small houses, not knowing the square footage lot size that it has to be, how many acres, say if I was a developer, which I got into some development, you'd buy 10 acres, okay? How many little of those houses can you put on 10 acres?
Well, two, the accessory dwelling and then the primary.
Pardon me?
The accessory dwelling and then the primary house.
Right.
So that would be it.
The tiny little house we're talking about, that's going to be a home that you can build on any lot, is that correct?
At this point, yes.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. If we would go to a development, say I was a developer, I had property in another area that the BLM wanted, and I said, okay, I'll trade you that property for that acreage behind there. And then he comes in there behind my house and my development, or our development we live in, and says, okay, we're going to build these tiny little houses for people to live in. Okay? How many houses could they put in that property, and what would the value of those be compared to the houses that are in our development, which most of them are running between $700,000 to over $1 million at this point in time? How many could they do?
Well, that would be 2 homes per 5 acres.
It's only it's a 5 acre parcel for a 300 square foot house?
No, it could be
Depends on your zoning.
Why don't we let our planning director clarify that it depends on the zoning, right, Chuck? And what the zoning allows?
It's in an unincorporated area.
It would depend on the general plan density, which for most of the unincorporated areas, a minimum of 5 acres. Areas that have public water and sewer, those are few and far between in the unincorporated area. Lots could be as small as an acre. Upcountry, it's generally going to be 5 acres or larger.
Okay, that answers my question on that part. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Act is correct, 2 houses per
5 acres.
Per parcel, right.
And that's per state law with the change that's occurred, as you said earlier.
Right.
So they're going to have a 380, what is it, 380 square feet?
360 is.
360 square foot house on, say, 2.5 acres? Basically what it would be.
What we're looking at isn't really so much per acre or how many houses per parcel. It's just whether or not to allow, a single family dwelling home from 800 square feet to 360.
Yeah. Well, what I'm concerned about, like just I said, if there's property around you and it gets bought up and they decide to build those small homes, okay, the value against that home against the values around the homes around you, it will devalue your home. No offense, buts about it.
Well, to me, sir, it sounds like you're talking about creating a development of these homes in areas, so that would have to go through an approval process.
I understand that, but I'm just
so
saying.
it may not get approved at that point for some of the reasons you're stating.
Okay.
But as a standard, it would be 2 homes per 5 acres.
Per 5
That would be the standard, unless it's a special development.
But that, at this time, Chuck, you could build 2 850 square foot homes, correct?
Correct.
On the same property.
Or you could build 1 800 square foot home as the primary dwelling. The accessory dwelling unit could be smaller than that.
Could be smaller.
Could be smaller.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right, thank you, sir.
thank you very much.
Any other public comment? John, you were next.
Run up here.
Morning again.
Morning again. I've got a different hat this time. John Heisenbuttle, Pine Grove resident, District 5. As I thought through the agenda item today, what it did was really raise the code enforcement issue, and it sounds like you all are taking care of that. As far as being concerned about affordability of homes, I mean, this is coming down from the state and the governor. Reduce some of the costs.
Amen to that.
Yeah, but, I mean, holy smokes, sprinklers? $20,000 added to the house. Now code is requiring plug-ins for electric vehicles. Get rid of that. If we're truly worried about affordable housing, there's other ways to get to it rather than tiny homes. Now looking at the subject of the day, the proposed code, provision number 1, which is for hardship cases, that's a compassionate provision. I don't think anybody has problems with that. Provision number 2, being able to have a trailer while you're actively building a house, I don't think anybody has a problem with that.
Both of those exist already, John.
Yeah. And it's tweaking at the margins. I understand that, Supervisor X. The tiny home question, I think that's a bridge too far right now. Until we can get some real answers about restrictions you can put on them regarding rentals, because I agree with some of the folks that have already testified. People are going to take advantage of that, and there'll be Airbnbs. Anyway, so you fully support the first 2 provisions. I think you need to think a little bit longer and harder about the tiny home approach. Thank you.
Any other public comment? No one on Zoom? No. I'd like a motion from the board to close.
Take a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Heisenbuttel's saying, I wonder, maybe we shouldn't approve the first 2, maybe look a little more and talk some other areas maybe that might have a tiny homes and see what issues they run into.
Well, I thought about that too, Supervisor, no, but the issue of 2 tiny homes on 5 acres is not influenced by whether they're 800 square feet or 360. Is that correct?
Right now, you could have you could have one 800 square foot home and then build an accessory dwelling that's smaller, right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
By right.
Yeah. So this would just change that first home to the 360 square feet.
So there's an existing home that's 800 square feet or bigger. Then if you want to build a second dwelling, you could go to the 360 then, and that'd be by right, by state law.
I think you can even build your accessory dwelling down to 1. It can be pretty small. It's pretty small. The smallest you can build under the building code,
which is like 150 square feet.
That kind of blows that to hell.
But that would have to have like a bathroom and a kitchen, or just a bathroom and...
Wish I had that code in front of me, but it has to have, there are some basic facilities that it has to have, and it can be inside an existing dwelling. Like if somebody converts part of their garage to a separate dwelling unit that has its own exterior access, then that qualifies as an accessory dwelling unit.
I guess my point was that the people who follow the rules, whether it's 800 or 360, are still going to follow the rules. And the outlaws are going to not follow the rules, and we're back to complaint driven is the only answer to kind of control it.
The one thing I want to do, I agree with John a little bit on maybe putting the cart before the horse, but if we act on this quickly, and for government, that probably means 4 months to look at or more to look at the weekend or vacation rental issue. So how many people are going to try and abuse the issue in that time? I'm not sure there's really a lot of abuse here. It's almost a by right now. If you're going to build 850 square foot or a 360 square foot, not a whole lot of difference there. They're both small houses. So I think we should, that means a resolution of intention needs to come back at the next meeting if we want to look at the, vacation rentals again, right?
Yes, correct.
And then it would go to the land use committee more than likely and probably take a couple months there and then back to the board. So realistically, you're looking at 4 or 5 months to get through that process.
Yeah, and there's just, because it is a public process, there are time constraints as far as advertising meetings and so on, so that's part of that time frame.
Well, I forgot to mention, after the land use, we come to this board to approve it in concept and then go to the planning commission, correct?
Correct.
And then back to this board for approval. So,
Chuck, was that a standalone issue, the VRBO, or was it tagged in with some other issues? Do you remember?
Standalone ordinance,
Okay.
standalone issue.
I think it was the first response to some of the issues we were having with that large house in Surrey Junction, and then it turned into a noise ordinance. So we went away from regulating the vacation rentals. And
Most of the, if I remember right, it was the fees that we were gonna have to associate to keep command and control over that VRBO was the biggest objection.
Yeah, staff was gonna issue a permit for the short-term rentals, and the cost wasn't, it was like $100 or $115, something like that, yeah.
But that was an annual fee or?
One time.
One time, okay.
let's go back to this issue and make the decision whether we want to approve, 2 parts or all the parts, and then, move quickly to address the vacation rental.
Maybe any, addendum or, modifications of Part C if we need to consider making any changes to that. Item 3.
Well, what kind of changes would there be, though? If it comes back, I envision it being pretty similar to what it is now.
I would just maybe think that if you're gonna build in a certain neighborhood, that it should be size consistent with maybe the dwellings already there.
In a neighborhood or adjacent to a neighborhood?
Well,
what the gentleman was talking about was basically the influence on home values.
I don't think you can
well, I
probably
think
do
he
that
was
legally.
even saying that they were gonna maybe take the land and turn it into a development. At that point, it would have to go through a planning process, and it would be open to public comment at that point. But yeah, I would just if it's I don't know how often that's going to happen. Some people want to like a certain neighborhood because they want to build a house similar to those in that neighborhood. I don't know if it's going to be abused in that way. But that might be a problem to look at.
it's possible that some people might put a small house and then build a bigger house instead of putting a trailer. So,
Yes.
So that if you said you could only build a big house in a neighborhood with big houses, then you wouldn't be able to do that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I'd kind of looked at this, that some people might want to build this small house just for temporary quarters, and then build their larger house and use the secondary home as a,
accessory
as a
dwelling unit.
quarters for people, visiting or family members.
Well, I think that's how we got here, was the board people came in and said, I want to build a 300 square foot house for temporary quarters rather than an 800 square foot house.
Okay.
While I build the big one.
All right, it's just something to keep an eye on. If people abuse it.
Anybody else want to think out loud?
Yeah, one thing I'd say too is, if you look at what it costs for a house, I mean, even a 360 square foot home is gonna probably cost you $150,000 by the time you're done, with everything. I mean, I don't see it being just small houses that can be a problem. I mean, you go in a neighborhood, you see a big house, if somebody's not taking care of it and they're on drugs, it could be 2,000 square feet and you've got a problem.
Yeah, my, sister-in-law was living in a real nice house and basically sold it to my daughter and her husband, and my sister-in-law built a, smaller home though, but it looks more like a barn. So, you know, there's all different kinds of construction you can do, and it doesn't look bad, and it serves her purposes. So in some neighborhoods, though, that might not be, considered to, be reasonable if you have a $1 million house sitting next to it. So board members, what's your, direction? I'll tell you, I think we can approve all three
Yeah,
areas
I
and
think we should just go ahead and,
move hastily with the, vacation rental
yeah.
review.
So I'll make a motion then to approve the proposed amendments and, 1, 2, and 3, and the findings, in the staff report,
Oh, it's motion, is there a second? I'll give this gavel to the,
I'll second it.
okay.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to read the last page of.
Okay, motion and second, and this is with the intent, as has been stated, to bring back a resolution of intention at the next meeting, which to address that vacation rental ordinance. And that would have to go to the, land use committee. So, any further discussion?
One question for council, and Greg, if we pass this and it starts, you may not know when problems may crop up. If they do, you could be in the future, but if you start having issues, there's nothing saying the board couldn't change that square footage back.
You could put it back. It would just wouldn't affect any of those permits that were issued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I gotta ask one more question then. As the question brought up, you know, let's say there's a Mace Meadow 5 up there where I live, where, you know, we have smaller lots. You know, would it, going through that system with the whole housing tract could be 360-foot homes?
Any owner of any lot could build this size house.
You might have covenants and restrictions too that might alternatively affect what could be built.
True. If the subdivision has CC&Rs with minimum lot sizes, those would have to be complied with as well.
Yeah, most of those CC&Rs have all been defunct anyway. Okay.
Further discussion? There's a motion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
All right, motion carries 4-1. And, staff, you have your direction on, the resolution of intention on vacation rentals, correct? So, that concludes our regular portion of our meeting. The board still has closed session items to discuss, so thank you all for being here today.